live. Bonsoir, bienvenue à notre réunion conseil. Welcome to our council meeting. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire? None. Is there a volunteer to move as a mover and a seconder for the addendum and also for the agenda? So for the meeting, are there any declaration of pecuniary interest?
Okay, it is moved by, I need a mover and a seconder.
Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Léo.
It is moved by Councillor Duhayman, seconded by Councillor Millette. Be it resolved that the addendum for the meeting of council held on March the 2nd, 2021 be approved as presented.
Any objections? None. Carried. Adoptee. A mover and a seconder for the agenda. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Lise.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Lise Senecal. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of council held on March the 2nd, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried. Adoptee. On procède avec comité. We proceed with committees. And the first committee is General Government, Gouvernement Général. I'll pass it on to the chair, Conseillère Lise.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Ce soir, nous avons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items sur le gouvernement général. Puis on commence avec proposed bylaw disposition of municipal land. So a couple of weeks ago, we had requested Mel to look into put something together so we could have something when we declare surplus on land. And I guess the purpose was to have a policy in place and also to try to avoid people that's buying land and they're going to keep it for 10 years to make a pile of money. So we're supposed to have insight, and we do. There's a clause to make sure that when we sell some land, especially for the industrial part of it, that people can see I'm buying the land to do this, and it will be, I would be starting within 12 months or whatever. I'm not too sure. I saw the number, but we're supposed to put a number. So I'll let Mel, I guess, because Mel, you're the one that did it, right?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Madam Chair. I looked at a number of different bylaws and in different municipalities to see what they were doing. A lot are doing much less than what we're proposing here, but I did find some that are actively pursuing industrial opportunities and putting provisions into their bylaw to allow them to control what goes on the lands that they sell. And they have the ability to either buy it back within a certain length of time if it doesn't proceed, or to require them to sell it back. And also a clause that they can't just flip it within a period of time, 5-10 years. So I took the normal provisions, the circulation, running it through all the other departments to make sure that nobody has a thought or that there's no infrastructure on it that we may or may not know about. So it just puts together a process. It will take a little bit longer and people might, not get an answer quite as quickly, but it will probably create a set of checks and balances that will make the disposition of land going forward a little bit more smooth.
So I'm sure, hopefully, everybody had a chance to go around, not go around, but to read it. So I'm going to start with Conseiller Duhaime. As-tu des questions?
Non, j'ai pas de questions. Merci, Madame Senecal.
OK.
Comme vous dites, Madame
Avec Monsieur Fisher.
No.
Oh, we can hear. You said, did you say no, Christopher? Because you were talking, but we couldn't hear you.
No, I think it's a great document. I like it. That's
okay.
all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Conseiller Larrabee maintenant.
Thank you. No comments on this one. Thank you.
Conseiller Mallette.
Yeah, just a question, Madam Chair, to Mel. If abutting land that we own and the property owner next door can he or he or she buy that property before we, of course, it has to be appraised before we surplus?
There is a clause in here in the exemption sections that talks about things that are not part of this. And it says lands that do not have direct access or the size of the land does not allow for the construction of a building, or if sold to the abutting landowner. That's in section 3.1.6.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, merci, Conseiller Léo. Conseiller Rabida?
No. Sorry. No issues, thank you.
Okay. Madame la mairesse.
I did have a few questions and trying to understand it. Thank you, Mel, for putting this together. When we talk about appraisals and we talk about exemptions, so if the municipality, if I understand it correctly, if we're going to sell land to another municipality, sell land to Crown, or either we sell land or transfer land to a local board, we're saying that this they fall within the proviso of an exemption for an appraisal?
That's correct. Now, if council doesn't want to go through that, typically when we do those sorts of things where it's a disposition to another level of government, we just convey it. Where it's another municipality, I believe that what we've done is just transfer it for the fair market or for the assessed value.
Would it not be, would it not provide a little bit more flexibility for council to entertain those discussions, even though we have a bylaw? Because even though we have a bylaw, we can always adopt an exemption to the actual bylaw if that would be the case based on the merit. So to me, yeah,
So
personally,
you don't want to have it, you don't support leaving those kinds of situations out of the, like,
I would-
it's not that you wouldn't be notified, it's just I wouldn't have to order and pay for an appraisal. That's
well,
what that exemption's for.
okay, well, personally, I find that there should be an appraisal, and if council wants to entertain an exemption, well, they can do that based on the issue, because at least this way, when we're declaring land surplus, we have an idea of what the value of that property is.
Okay, so.
Under, if I may, Madam Chair, can I just continue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Under notice 7.2, so when we're going to be when notice will be given, we're going to identify 14 days prior to the meeting where this matter is going to be discussed. Is there an opportunity that the 14 days can be increased to 30 days? Because 14 days could be a short window in the event that people are gone on holidays or they missed it or whatever. If we have a wider window, well, at least no one can figure point and say that council, didn't provide enough time or enough proviso to be able to respond.
It can be whatever this council feels is.
Okay,
Rude.
well, my recommendation would be that we look at 13 days. 30 days instead of the 14 days. Just, for transparency and fairness and equity to anyone that to be informed.
And
I'm asking for direction. Like, does everybody else agree with this?
I think what we're going to do, I'm going to finish going around and then, because I think Madam Mayor, I have two recommendations and we'll go then. We'll go around
Okay,
to.
thank you, Madam
okay?
Chair.
Okay, and I had another one, Madam Chair.
Okay, the third one, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I was looking at the section 10, disposal of industrial land. Okay, and I think one of the purpose was to make sure that we don't declare industrial land surplus and that there's no activities. But when we looked at that 10.4, before the disposal transaction is finalized, an agreement shall be negotiated pertaining. Do we negotiate the agreement or do we ask the developer to provide us with a plan and a timeline?
I think they're talking about the agreement of purchase and sale through you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, but then we're saying that we want We also want an agreement shall be negotiated pertaining among other things to the delay of completion of the agreed upon construction. Where is there something specific as far as clause where we're asking the purchaser to provide us with the type of development and the timeline of the development? Because I think that was something that council really wanted to address with the bylaw. I
Okay.
thought it related more to 10.4. There
So
was
it
no,
would, those provisions are up in 10.1 and those 10.1.1 and 2, talking about construction of the building or structure. Those are the situations where it can be dealt with by direct negotiation. If they're going to build a building. And then
Okay.
if it down there, it talks about if they're going to delay building a building.
okay. Well,
It
I
will be
just
in
want,
like if they say they're going to build a building, but they're not going to build it until 2025, that has to be in the agreement of purchase and sale and agreed upon by council before they sell it.
okay. And I just wanted that assurance that we had timeline so that the developer knows that part of their plan, we want to be able to find out when that plan is going to get done. Okay. And then I was a little bit confused with 10.6 because the purchaser, l'acheteur shall not within 10 years have the right to dispose of the land in full or in part without first obtaining the consent of the municipality. Are we making reference to vacant land, or are we making reference to land that has already been developed where there's already either commercial or industrial activity taking on? Because if they did realize their project and they did do construction, at that point, the land was developed. And if they decide to resell, I don't think it was the will of council to say that we want to buy a business. Our main interest was pertaining to vacant land. We don't want to sell land and lots to remain with no activity for an extended period of time. So that part I wasn't clear because the 10 years, I don't think that we want to wait 10 years for any commercial or industrial development to occur on vacant land that we're going to be declaring surplus.
No, that's just land. That's not pertaining to vacant or developed. That's just stating that if someone buys land from us they can't resell it within 10 years.
Okay.
It doesn't specify vacant or developed.
Okay, well, that 10 years then should not be there because if we're declaring land surplus and we're negotiating a plan with the developer and the developer's telling us, I'm going to be doing construction by that timeline, if no activity occurs by that timeline, then the municipality can acquire back the land at a certain cost. So why do we specify then 10 years?
It's entirely within this council's purview to
Okay.
put whatever they want.
Well, my recommendation would be that maybe that clause, if it's not clear, that we remove it, because I think we're going to be resolving the issue with the negotiation and having the business plan and having a timeline. That's my opinion, because
Okay, so you have three specific things, Madam Mayor, if I can summarize, and we'll go to Councillor Dennis. I'll say my comment, and after that, we'll go around. And we'll go one by one to see how council feel about it, okay?
perfect.
Conseiller Denis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no comment. It's a good document.
Okay, my only comment too, I think I don't think the intent was to sit down for 10 years for somebody to build something. I think it was, that's why we have that bylaw. And I thought I had, but I guess I remember the meeting, and the main purpose was one, when we declare surplus, it was the purpose to have a bylaw was to make sure that those person buy it for a specific reason and that they built on it and they would have a time frame. So that's what I understood when we were at the meeting. And because right now, why 10 years and they cannot sell or whatever. Anyways, so we'll go around. I kind of find it, I don't think that's what I was looking for. I mean, I read the first page and I went on some point and there was, seems to be okay. Like, I think it's a big bylaw for something very specifically that we wanted to have. So I don't know how council feels. So, Madam Mayor, say your first recommendation and we'll go around. A show of hand to see if they agree to add, delete, or whatever. Just say your.
I was gonna say, I took notes and I can just summarize it, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The first item that was recommended or suggested by Her Worship was that the exemption for appraisals not apply to Crown dispositions, so they would just be removed for Crown dispositions to other municipalities that would still have to get an appraisal and go through the same process. That was the first recommendation. Do you want to do them one at a time, Madam Chair?
Yeah, but can I ask a question about that? Because I forgot to ask it. Okay,
Sure.
Why would we do something special when we sell a property to somebody, another municipality or the government, that we would do for people, regular resident?
Periodically, the MTO wants strips of land along highways. Sometimes Bell wants strips of land for easements. Hydro wants, utility corridors. That's the sort of thing that we're talking about, is if they want an easement or a strip of land for a pipe or something like that, or a widening of a highway, that we wouldn't have to go through the whole appraisal process.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Can you read the question that the member have to say yes or no?
The question was from the mayor is to remove the exemption for obtaining an appraisal. So to delete 3.1.4, which is disposals to the Crown, and where was the one about the other municipality?
It was, I had it down as 6.23, 6.24, 6.25.
Okay, so land sold or transferred to another municipality, transferred to the Crown, transferred to a school board or conservation authority.
Okay, so by show of hand, who agreed to have that delete? So nobody wants it to be delete, Madam Mayor? I didn't see your hand raised.
Well, I brought it forward,
Well,
so
it
I
doesn't matter
mean,
sometimes. I thought you didn't
it's
change your mind.
it's a point. No, I haven't changed my mind because I'm
Okay.
contemplating other scenarios in my mind, because we can get requests for purchase of parcels.
Okay,
And we were dealing with land that can be developed. So that was
Okay,
my
so-
reasoning.
so obviously, there were just you, so, and even if I would vote, it doesn't matter at that point of time. Okay, the second question,
The next point was 7.2, to increase the notice period for dispositions from 14 days to 30 days.
so who's in agreement with that? Yvonne, Denis, Madam Mayor, myself, so that's 4-4. So what does it mean?
It stays as is.
I knew it. I know it by now. So number 3, third question,
The third question was to delete 10.6, which was to require people to have consent from the municipality before disposing within a 10-year period.
so who's in favor of that? Yvonne? So I guess defeated. Okay, number 2, D1B, legislation regarding municipal freedom of information and protection of privacy act. Madame Lameres. And we did receive some information from Mel, a couple of page, I guess, and a website. So Mel, do you want to say something before Madame Mayor? You want to no, I think, I don't know which one, it was brought up by the mayor, so you want to talk about it, or maybe Mel, do you want to summarize first of the information you gave us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The act is prescriptive, governed and overseen by the Information and Privacy Commissioner for the province. So we do our best, as indicated in the memo, to carry out the provisions of the act as prescribed. So I think the information was pretty clear and self-explanatory.
Okay, so Madam Mayor, you want to say why you asked for that?
Well, thank you, Mel, for the information. That's greatly appreciated. The reason I brought it up is because I was a little bit confused on how requests are being handled regarding decisions that are made from council. And I think this sparked pertaining to the Integrity Commissioner report, which was a different report that went to the public domain and not provided to council. So that sparked my interest pertaining to request for freedom of information and the administration and the process in handling requests. The act does state notification. And one of the questions that I had is pertaining to legislation. Once there's a request for freedom of information, there also has to be some notification to the individuals or to the members of the institution. And I was wondering why that council was not duly informed that there was a request and that there was a disclosure pertaining to documentation that involved council.
Do you want to answer that, Jay, or did you want me to address it?
You can address it, Mel. I'll help you
Okay.
out if you need.
Through you, Madam Chair, when I received this request, I did obtain advice because obviously it was a little bit different request. And I was informed and advised that the exemptions and the request to notify are very specific, and they are only pertain to information that's set out in section 10.1 and 21.1. Which is trade secrets, third-party information, technical financial information, that the information that was being requested didn't fall within that category and therefore didn't need to be notified.
Okay. When we read up on the act, I know that section 21 describes exactly the notification to the stakeholders or to the individuals. I mean, if you just look at the entire process, there's communication logistics that have been overlooked, definitely, because, and Jay, if I may continue, please. If one does communicate with the Freedom of Information, the office directly of the commissioner, they also explained that, you know what, there's a mechanism of communication to the individuals that involves regarding the information. Bottom line, we had a presentation from the IC. The IC provided us with a report, and then there was a more detailed report that was released to the public. And council had a bylaw and addressed that question to the IC in person. Now, I'm not debating the issue about releasing the report or having a report generated for the disclosure. However, it's the communication issue of making us aware that a request has been received and that disclosure is proceeding. And that document that was released in the public domain was not even shared with members of council, and it's members of council that do have an agreement with the IC. So in fairness to council, council should have been informed, and we should have been provided a copy of that report as well.
So I'm
And-
gonna go,
And to further that, there's also a section in the Act that makes reference to fees. So how did we manage the fees to generate a new report and the cost for generating that report? Because I know from past practice, when there's requests that comes, anything that's tied up to the resources, photocopying, retrieving manuals, retrieving documents, customarily, there's a fee that's charged for the time involved and the resources involved. So that's another section that's identified in the legislation, and I was curious to find out how that is also being administered.
Through Madam Chair, on this one, there were no fees charged because everything was communicated electronically. The payment was made for the original request, but the information was exchanged electronically. There was no fees involved.
May I, Madam Chair?
yes, yes.
Okay. By requesting a specific report, a more detailed report, I'm assuming that there was a cost involved from the IC to put this report together. So there is a fee for getting this report and preparing the report and submitting the report.
I assume so. I haven't seen the invoice yet, but I do assume that he would have charged his time as would be the usual hourly rate that he charges on all of his business that he does with us.
Okay, so I guess tonight, what I wanted to do is I had those questions. It was unclear. I did read up on the Act, and I did communicate with the Freedom of Information Commissioner's Office to have more prescribed details. And since it's a report that involves an agreement that council has established through a bylaw, I would ask that that report also be shared in the entirety to all members of council, and for council to make a decision on whether or not if that report should also be made accessible to all the public via our website. And also if there's a policy that needs to describe the various steps, I would ask for staff to check into that and to bring back a policy to us.
Okay, gotta go around. Is there any question? Conseiller Yvon? All right, your mic,
I guess the question I have is, if there's an extra fee and there's a request, wouldn't the one making the request have to pay that fee? That's when I'm just questioning that. It just, and and I have to agree. I'd like to be notified when things are happening, especially in this case. So that's what all I have to say, Madam Chair.
thank you. Next, Conseiller Fisher.
So I have no problem with the way it went down. The Freedom of Information request, the government body generally doesn't get any say in things anyway, because it's to take away the ability for the people that own the information to censor. The other thing I would note is that the fee, we shouldn't have had the fee from the lawyer, because if we were actually following the bylaw, all the information would be sitting with the municipality and we never would have to pay the lawyer to put it together. So you can't have it both ways. You either follow the bylaw or you don't follow the bylaw. And that's all I got.
Okay, Conseiller Larrabee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, since day one that was brought to our attention about the Integrity Commissioner and the complaints, I said it from day one, this should be public. The public's paying for it. It should be public, and we pride ourselves on transparency. When we campaign, we say we're transparent. Well, this is transparent. Everything should be out in the open. Thank you.
Okay, Conseiller Mallette.
Yes, leave as is, on the same thing, leave as is.
Conseiller Revito?
I think if Melanie got legal advice from her lawyer, that would trump other people's comments. And that I think that Melanie did the right job in as much as that she did what she was supposed to. Now, in as much as having this released to the public, I think it should be, because we all did work on the principle of transparency. But, you know, the point is their interpretation, the interpretation of the mayor's on the act is counter to what the lawyer provided us. So I would like to, Jay, can you expand on that, please, for me? Well, there's when the municipality or when council appointed a head, the head being the clerk, the relationship with respect to freedom of information lies between the clerk and I've been that before, and it's kind of stressful to know what to release and what not to release. With respect to this issue, you know, she forwarded the request to the IC, and the IC is the one who actually volunteered the information and provided the report. I asked Melanie whether that notice provision prevailed, and the reply was that no, it didn't prevail because council, when you're acting as a counselor, you don't have that same, under the freedom of information, that same expectation of privacy. And there isn't anything in the information that is like an exemption to releasing. There's nothing there that is grounds for exemption. And so I believe that that is the information that we got and why it was handled. Whether there's a moral or a policy issue that if there's anything happening affecting council, should it be released ahead of time, despite the act, then that, you know, that's a valid comment. But certainly it's not legislated a legislated requirement.
Conseiller Dan, you want to add something else, or?
No, thank you.
Okay, so Madame Savage, I'll let you, you want to say something, or?
Yes, I do. If we're talking about transparency, I don't see why there would be the reservation of not informing council that there's been a request and there's been a decision to disclose, and whatever information is disclosed is shared with council. So transparency is two ways. And if there was consultation with a lawyer and finding out from the lawyer, well, are we obligated to inform council, and that the lawyer said no? The act does state notification to the affected person for a reason. So I'd like to see that interpretation of the lawyer, because he must have submitted something in writing. And I'd like to be able to have an understanding of exactly the interpretation of the lawyer that would be different to legislation. And when it comes to the issue about making reference that this should have been public disclosure from the beginning, well, from the beginning, all of council adopted the bylaw, and it was adopted unanimously. There was no objection. And then we rehashed that discussion, and we went according to the information that was presented to us. I'm not debating the issue of the disclosure, the decision of the head to disclose the information. What I am debating is withholding the information from council and letting a public document shared in the public domain without even notifying us, and that we have to find out from the public domain. I find that, to me, it's not proper governance on how we want to do business.
Okay, Madame Mayor, Monsieur Sénécal, Conseiller Sénécal.
Yes, Madam Chair, I agree with the mayor that we should have had a heads up at least of what's going on. And I was under the impression that this was all under a Privacy Act, but I guess not. But if you're going to release it to the media or whoever you're going to release it, the ones that are affected, the Act says we should be advised, and we should have a copy of first the lawyer that gave you the go-ahead and the document itself. It's only a matter of whatever, a class, I guess. And so I agree that to be transparent, we should all have the document, and we should have what the lawyer said about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Monsieur Sénécal. Well, you know what, like as far as the document being out, like really, and I would like, and I hope that now that it's out, because it's not everybody that see it with the Tribune, that it will be posted on our website, because now it's, they asked for it, it's public and blah, blah, blah. So it's got to be posted. I'm not in agreement for the fact that you're talking about, I find it very, I find it myself very funny that we talk about transparency when that document was asked for, was shared, with follow whatever that they have to follow, it was done. That there's obviously two counselors that knew about it because they're the only one that commented. That's another problem that I have, but it's not with council because we don't run the paper. So they should have went around and asked everybody their input, not stick on two counselors. And also they asked the mayor for something, and the mayor, that's how she found out that there were a document that was released. So to talk about transparency, and we follow since day one what council agree unanimously about that bylaw that we are talking about. And even at some point of time when we discussed it, obviously it was clear at that point of time that some councillor wanted to have publicly, for whatever reason, they're changing their mind. And it was defeated again at council because at that time we were 9. So you know what, put it public. But also when you put it public, because of course, there were 3 specific cases that was not resolved at that point of time. I think everything should have went out, not just the one that, it's not because people put complaint that they had no reason for investigation. And it's very, very clear. And it's the right that all residents in West Nipissing, including council meeting, and obviously people, and including the staff also, obviously, they have the right to use it. So everything should have been. So I'm going to personally make sure that every time there's only 3 that it's not dealt with. And when it's dealt, even if I have to pay to put in the paper, even the result, I'll do it myself. Because you want to be transparent with everybody, not just certain people among of us. So that's my opinion. And so at this point of time, I guess Madam Mayor asked, and I would like to see the lawyer advice, because that section is very clear that we should. I mean, we were all involved, and then to find out on reading the paper, and I mean, that's not pleasant. And it's not because of the result of the report, because, hey, I mean, whatever that I did or said or made a complaint, I had reason. And if it was proven good or not good, they gave me a reason that I accepted. And Councillor Dan, you had your chance to speak. I think I want to finish what I have to say, and I have the right to my own opinion. And I also have the right to state it the way I'm doing it right now, because I'm not accusing any person. I'm talking about how I feel, my opinion, and I think nobody can debate that. So if you have something else, everybody else, Monsieur Barbeau.
2 things. Just a question along the same lines as the line yesterday, where I'm not necessarily, or we're not necessarily going to be moving unless it's a council direction to move on something, or if does the rest of council want to our lawyer reiterate his position, and if that has 5 people that agree, then we'll do it. And then the other one is to make it public if there are 5 people.
Well, I mean, I will find it very discouraging if the 5 people doesn't want to make it public when they all agree to go public with it. So
the point I'm making, Lise, let me finish.
I know your point. You want us to vote to see if we want the report to be public or to want a copy of what the laureate said, right?
Yeah, okay. So next time that I actually try and steer you, then you'll remember this one as well. Thanks.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair, before we proceed to a vote? So what we're saying is that there's
Madam Chair, I wasn't allowed to talk, but you let the mayor talk.
Yeah, and I will because Monsieur Barbeau started. I asked you and I asked Monsieur Barbeau.
No, you didn't
talk.
ask. No, you
Listen,
didn't.
Conseiller Dan, you will have your turn, okay? So
No, I don't
Madame Mayor, wait, Councillor Dan is gonna talk. Go.
Okay.
The point being is what we're saying is what you're asking, Madam Mayor, is that we have the copy from the lawyer, and then you're asking that it made public. Is it something that we can make public? It's not even our it's not even our freedom of information. So how can we make it public? It's not our
Well, the answer to the second one is I believe you can. Once it's been disclosed publicly and the information is public, then it is public. My point simply is it the wish of council to move forward with the what was requested? I just want to make sure that council as a whole is directing staff and not one or two people.
So if I may, my question,
Yes.
my
And
question.
that's the last comment and we gotta go around for the vote, Madam Mayor.
So my question here in understanding what's being asked is that to be able to understand the legal interpretation of our lawyer, we have to call that to a vote. So what we're saying is that if majority doesn't rule, there's no way that members of council that do wish to understand the legal recommendation of our municipal lawyer, the advice that was provided. So I guess if it's defeated, then a member of council can submit a request for, under the Municipal Freedom of Information, pay $5 and request a copy of the legal opinion provided by the lawyer. Why are we so hesitant in sharing information that is being paid by taxpayers' dollars when we are debating the issue about the Integrity Commissioner report paid by the taxpayers' dollars? So,
I'm not
You know-
hesitant, Your Worship. I'm
well,
not hesitant.
if there was no hesitation, it would have been disclosed. It's not being disclosed. And
No,
now
I'm
we
not
have to call
suggesting
it
that
to
it
a
isn't
vote.
being disclosed. What I'm suggesting is it's a totally separate matter. But if one or two people are asking for all kinds of things, I just want to be sure that that's the wish of council. That's a whole separate matter. With respect to the legal interpretation, it was Melanie got it, but I can probably surmise that it wasn't provided in writing. It was a verbal conversation with.
I actually have an, I have an email. I do
you do?
actually have
Okay,
an
good.
email.
All right, then that's good. All right.
Okay,
So, Madam Mayor, I'm gonna proceed because we've been almost an hour. So the first one is who's in favor are putting the report public, that it's all republic. So put it public so
Yep.
everybody can see it.
Madam Chair, I want a recorded vote on that.
Okay. Mel, can you go then? Read the
But
first
there's
question. and who
no,
wants to-
there's no motion, Madam Chair, there's no motion on the floor unless, this is committee.
Well, then, okay, we cannot vote because I've been told many times that we
Well,
cannot
well,
vote. So we
if I-
can
if I-
direct the staff.
Madam Chair, may I recommend that when we get to the section of the regular council, that we have a resolution ready and that we put a recorded vote regarding the IC report that was released in the public domain, and to make it accessible to all the public via our website, and that we also have a subsequent resolution to vote on the issue about the legal opinion, informing staff that there was no requirement to notify council, that there was no requirement to disclose that there was going to be an IC report, which is paid by the taxpayers, to be required to share with members of council. And subsequent to that, at a future meeting, I'd like to see an update pertaining to the fees. So we're not voting in committee, we'd be voting in the regular part of the council meeting.
But you're amending the agenda.
So, okay.
Well, you know what? If that's the case, just defer the two resolutions to be brought back at the next meeting.
That works.
Actually, you said there was three.
No, there's two recommendation, Conseiller Dan. I think 3 was the first one that there were recommendation that we voted on it. This one was just, and correct me if I'm wrong, was for the report and the lawyer's advice.
No, then there was the fees. They
Oh,
just,
the fee that came
the mayor
after.
just added a third one.
Okay, yeah, true. Sorry, the last one was the fee.
We don't vote on the fees until we can get some feedback from staff pertaining to the legislation and the administration of how requests for freedom of information are being managed. The
That's what
legislation
you
is very
said,
clear.
That's not what you said.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We didn't get a response pertaining to the actual costs for generating the report and who's paying the cost for that report. I
Is,
didn't hear.
So if I can summarize, so you're asking for a deferral. So I mean, you just need a motion, somebody to say it and somebody to support it. That's what you need? No, nothing. So defer.
Well, Jay?
Well, if
As
everybody
per-
agrees, I mean, if I would roll this back a little bit, and I take no position on what you're asking, I just want council concurrence is all. If council just by even a straw poll right now has concurrence with what you're asking, then there's no issue. And, or if you want to wait to formalize it with a resolution, then, if council has concurrent, we can wait till the next meeting and create a resolution, or by 2/3 consent, you could amend this agenda and put it on today. So it's there's 3 options, I believe. But if you want, let's just go along and put 3 resolutions or 2 on next agenda, and then we'll deal with it then formally, since
Okay.
it seems to be a sticky
Yeah.
pin in most years.
Yeah. So, okay. So can we go on?
Mhm.
Number D1C. Okay. Je ne peux pas le dire en anglais, puis je ne peux pas traduire le mot en français. So modernization funding intake 2. And I think it's all about you, Alicia. Go for it.
Thanks. I'm just going to flip to my memo here. So the last general government meeting, we received a notice regarding the intake 2 on the Municipal Modernization Fund. We did participate in intake 1. That is what is funding the operational review that's ongoing right now. When I looked at the required criteria for the intake number 2, it is very specific what type of service delivery they are going to include in these projects, either in a review stage or an implementation stage. But the other part is that in order to qualify at all, even for this expression of interest stage that is filing in March, as the municipality has to confirm that it has fully spent or fully allocated the $725,000 that we received, that unconditional money that we received in 2019. And as we have not fully spent those funds, we wouldn't be eligible for any projects in the intake number 2.
So Alicia, if I can hear you, is you're recommending that we spend it, right?
Well, I am recommending that we spend it. Yes, I am. Absolutely.
There you go. So so council, do we have to go around and comment, Conseiller Duhaime?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Conseiller Fisher?
I'm good. I'm good.
Conseiller Larrabee?
I'm good.
Conseiller Mallette?
Same thing. I'm good.
Conseiller Revita?
Yes, I'm all right.
Madame Lamerez?
I'm fine.
Conseiller Denis?
C'est bon.
And Conseiller Alice, all in favor. My God, 8-8. Good show. Go, Alicia. Spend.
No, well, Madam Chair.
Wait, I know. I'm
Okay.
trying a little bit to break.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Like now we're going to D1D, deferral tax installment date. Madame Lamerez.
first lockdown, we had adopted a resolution to defer the installment of taxes to alleviate the stress burden with our residents and businesses. With this lockdown, well, we all know the financial hardship, pertaining to our small businesses. and also other hardships with individuals. So if we were able to approve a resolution, the first lockdown recommendation, council has an opportunity to reduce the stress or the anxiety of for all involved. So the recommendation is that the first installment that was due at the end of March, that it be deferred by 3 months, and that the second installment that was due for April be deferred by 3 months, and that there'd be no penalty or interest for that period. And, you know, it doesn't, there's not, financially, there's not much we can do to help our businesses and people that are not working due to the lockdown, but this is an opportunity of what we have as far as capability of doing. And, you know, at the end, our small businesses that have not been in operation since December, well, a lot of them do own buildings. They have taxes to pay for the building, taxes to pay for their home. They have double the invoices, hydro, water and sewer. So if we were able to finish in a surplus for 2020 and we did adopt a similar resolution, recommendation would be that we consider doing such a resolution as well for this lockdown period.
Mr. Devine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Meadows, for bringing this up. It's something that I brought up a while back. It's because of I had received calls from various people and businesses, and they were appalled at the fact that we were charging them interest. I know we had agreed on it, but having receiving these calls and that, I was wondering whether or not we can return back or do the same as what we did previously with the first lockdown. And I'm asking council to please accept this. It would certainly help a little bit with in the times that they're in. There seems to be no, hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel so we can get back to normal, but they're hurting now, and we certainly want to try to help as much as we can. So I just ask.
So you're yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Fisher.
So I just wondered, is this businesses and just property owners, or is it targeted businesses, or is this a blanket thing? And so that would be my first question. My second.
Can you repeat that, Conseiller Fisher, your question?
If it is to target just businesses, or if it is a blanket thing for.
Okay, I think it's the same request that we did in the first last year.
A blanket for all property taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question would be to staff and Elisa, can we do it? So my one concern is, if we're, how is this going to affect our bottom line? Because eventually people have to pay, and obviously, if we're losing that money now, it's going to show up on the balance sheet at some point in time, and perhaps hurt people worse. So my next thing would be to get a staff's opinion on it. And obviously, people need relief, and I'm not trying to say that. I just don't want to do the wrong thing. And then my other question would, can we do this on a case-by-case basis for people that need it, as opposed to, if that would be better? So I guess that's, well, 2 or 3 questions, depending on how you look at it. Thank you.
Alicia, can you answer that, please? Oh, you're there. I was looking for you.
Yeah, so on a couple of those points, yeah, so, and sort of what we learned from what we did last time as well, and we did that blanket waiver to absolutely everybody last time, and some of that was to let us get a chance to catch our breath and figure out what we were doing and figure out what was going on, and sort out different ways of payment and sort out how things were going to happen. So if you are doing waiver of penalties and interest, then we don't need to defer the due dates, because the net effect is the same. And if we leave the due dates, it actually makes things simpler for the mortgage companies and for those that are on pre-authorized payments and those types of things, if we don't actually move the due dates. But if you're waiving penalties and interest, you get the same effect for those that are in need. when we did it last time, when we did that blanket waiver, we also included everybody that had, you know, taxes owing for multiple years prior to COVID. And their situation isn't necessarily a problem because of COVID. They were already in a situation, and so they were getting kind of this extra benefit. But the problem with that is you know, once small businesses or residents get behind, and they get behind 2 years, and then it's that much harder to catch up. And I would far rather do creative payment plans with these people rather than let them go without paying their taxes at all for multiple months or multiple years, because then it's just too much for them to get back. And then again, just the difference between waiving penalties and you know, moving due dates. If we move those due dates, then we're moving all the due dates, and that just changes our cash flow. To Councillor Fisher, can it be done? It can be done. You know, is it going to have an economic impact on the municipality this year? Absolutely it is. If we're looking at doing a waiving of penalties and interest on a needs-based situation for people with current taxes, I think you still get those people that have hardship now while still allowing, you know, municipality to collect a lot of money from those that can still afford to pay the money, or like I said, the mortgage companies that have already taken all the money from folks and allowed that to still come in while still addressing the needs of those that have a need right now. So those are just things that you know, I wonder if council would consider when they're looking at how to best give a break to those that need a break.
May just, I know I'm the last one to speak, but I want to come back to that, Alicia, what you're saying, because last year there were no interruption in my tax. It was withdraw every month in my account. So I guess the people that are like that, if they are in need, they will have to call, and you didn't stop that. So I understand what you're saying on I don't disagree that if people need it, then if they ask, that you can make arrangement. But I mean, when we're talking about blanket, they did not we did not delay paying our tax, usual tax every month, because it came out of my account every month. So I'm not too sure what you were saying when you were saying that.
We have two different types of PAP plans. We actually have three different types. So PAP monthly, like yourself, would have continued, but we also have people that do pre-authorized payment on the due date. And so we only go and take it on the due date. And so those ones all got pushed. And we got so many calls from people saying, oh my goodness, you didn't take my money. I've got the money now. Come get the money. And we ended up doing multiple special payments to go and get them because people had the money right now, or they had to cancel their whole pre-authorized and pay us in it online.
You're getting excited, Alicia. You're talking fast.
I know. So yeah, it was those pre-authorized due dates that, and it you know, people that had the money were then very taken aback that we didn't go and get the money from them. But the penalty and interest waiver gives you the same effect as pushing the due date, right?
So if I may, Madam Chair, since I brought this up, so from what I hear, it would not be deferring the date, but that we would provide an extension without penalty and interest. So if someone was not paying by the first installment and in second installment, would there be a timeline that we would say that there will be no penalty and interest charges up to that date? And after that date, well, then payments are due?
I think we probably do want to put a sunset on it if you're going to do it to everybody. And if you're going to do it on a needs-based, then you could extend that longer, or you could put a sunset on it as well. But I think that there does need to be kind of a timeline. So if you're looking at moving the due dates sort of 3 months, it could be a penalty and interest waiver for 3 months or something like that then instead.
Okay, so that would be the recommendation then, because that would probably be more feasible and easier in the tax department. And then people would know that if they can't pay their first installment in March, and if they pay it in May, well, then they're not going to be charged interest and penalty for the month of, for the lateness instead of for deferring their payment to April. but I imagine there would have to be a cutoff date by which people would need to be required to pay, because if it's not paid by that date, then we're going to be starting to charge interest and they're going to be penalized. Okay, I sort of understand.
Okay, so Conseiller Yvon, and then I'm gonna have to go on because it's 7:30 and we've got
Yeah.
3 items gone, so. Conseiller
Okay,
Yvon,
okay. I had first brought this up, and realistically, the only problem or dismay they had was the fact that they had to pay penalties and interest. Other than having to pay the tax, we know that it has to be paid, and I have no problem with that. If they're a little late, something or somewhat, I can understand that there would be interest. But if we can relax ourselves on that and just allow them to pay it, but they do have to pay it one way or the other during the course of the year. The taxes do have to pay. Just give them a little leeway in order to make that ends meet and be able to pay their taxes when they can, and without having to be penalized or have anything to punish them with. That's all they were asking. They weren't asking the fact that they didn't have to pay it. No. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
okay, so I think I was up, Councillor Fisher, I'm gonna go on, Dan, if you don't mind, Conseiller Dan. So I think the next one, and the last one that spoke was Councillor Fisher. So now I'm gonna go to Councillor Larrabee. Did I miss
Yes.
something? No.
No, thank you. I tend to agree with what's mentioned here, as long as there's a timeline that they do have to pay. So they just need to work with the municipality. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Okay. Conseiller Mallette?
Yes, the same thing on needs basis. I think if somebody has a problem and then they go to Alyssa and then ask for, an extension or whatever it is. And then, because it doesn't affect everybody. So we can't blanket everyone, but as a need basis, I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Okay, Conseiller Vida.
Well, Councillor Leo took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say what I'd like to do is just compliment what Councillor Yvon said, waiver the interest. But then I want to key into what Alicia said, that, we should be working on individual plans for those that are in arrears. And I mean, those that are, because of COVID, are in arrears. So if we could have individual plans for catch up for them, that would be appreciated, and that people are aware of it, that they can send in a note to you, Alicia, and that basically, that would be my recommendation, that they can send a note into us and say, because of COVID, this is what's happening. I would like to get into a catch-up plan, and that I don't want to pay the interests. So it would complement what you said, Councillor Yvon, and what Councillor Leo said. So thank you.
And Madame la Mairesse also stated she was in agreement with that. So, Conseiller Sénécal.
Yes, Madam Chair, I agree with the waiver of interest for 3 months. But as to your recommendation that Dan and Leo are talking about, how are we going to publicize that to people that don't have media or have media challenges? It's hard for the older people to get in, to know that they can do this. So I'm not sure how we could let them know, because we have computers and that's fine, but like in Lavigne, there's a lot of older folks that don't have computers. So that's my question to anybody.
Okay, so I think maybe, and Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, if a case like that, first of all, like people that were struggling before, they're still gonna struggle, but for new one, and if the bill is not in after a month, they could be maybe a standard letter saying, you know what, can you call me and we'll make arrangement, and don't worry about the interest, to open the door for them, because some people, you got people that have a lot of pride, which is very understandable. So, and older people that trying to stay in their houses, so maybe telephone, something like that, and try to work with them, because I mean, for people that struggling before, they will struggle, still struggling, that's for sure. But I wouldn't charge interest for, I would not cut the interest that was owed before, because it had nothing to do with COVID, but I would give them a break for that interest, for this one, to be fair. So, because it's not by adding interest that, they're going to be able to pay it more, right? But I don't know, Alicia, maybe Maybe, well, we got a meeting in 2 weeks. Maybe you can come with something that would be fair, but that would be very feasible, not to have the tons of work on the staff. Do you think do you want a time to think about it? You have an idea what we want? We want people to be able to get a break, not to pay interest, and some people maybe have a need arrangement to pay their tax.
And so just if I can clarify then, you had originally been talking sort of about a 3-month waiver. So we're gonna look at a 3-month waiver of penalty and interest past the last due date of interim for everybody on this year's taxes. And then those that have got a bigger need or bigger problem on catching up through COVID will have them contact us or have some system to look at some one-on-one plans with those who need to do the catch up from even last year's COVID period and things like that. Is that?
Well, I think that would be, I think, Madam Mayor, okay, I think that would be great, Alicia. Okay, we'll go for a couple of comments maybe, but we need to, to maybe direct Alicia to come back with something that we're going to be able to see and discuss a little bit more at the next meeting also. So Madam Mayor, you had something?
Well,
Yeah.
I think what I heard from Melissa, she summarized it correctly, that we want to be able to waive the penalty and interest for a period of 3 months for all. And then those that are in arrears, not because of COVID, but in arrears, we understand because of COVID, maybe it's more challenging, and that these people can work directly with our staff to see what kind of arrangement. But if we're going to be providing no interest and no penalties for a period of 3 months, I think that we're going to need a resolution at our next meeting to be voted on.
Okay, so are you okay, Alicia?
Yeah, and I can certainly include with the resolution just sort of a bit of a, here's what it's going to look like and here's how we'll contact people because, yeah, what our restrictions are with that. Yep.
Okay, good. That's a good thing. So now we're going to D. So it's naming of municipal asset. Request for renaming of municipal facility in memorial of Marcel Labbé. So again, Mel, you had prepared something for us to look at it.
Through you, Madam Chair, actually, I didn't prepare it. It was prepared by communications, but I am prepared to speak to it.
Okay.
So what was this, as council will recall, this arose out of a request from the Labbé family to rename the complex in honor of the deceased Monsieur Labbé. So council had indicated that they thought perhaps we should have a policy. So what has been put forward is provisions which could be incorporated into a bylaw similar to the one that we did for naming of roads. We found that a lot of municipalities actually even combine those things. However, we've put in here just some principles that, many municipalities are using in terms of how they recognize people either posthumously or not. Also setting restrictions on, making sure that names aren't derogatory or, duplicate other things. So what has been provided here is just a policy statement as well as some principles for council's consideration before adopting a bylaw, or if council wants to adopt a bylaw to cement this.
Conseiller Jaime?
Adopting a policy or bylaw, yeah, I have no problem with that. Just to maybe give a little bit of what I think about the naming of for Mr. Marcel Labbé. I know Marcel Labbé for quite some time and quite for many years. And every time we held an event at the arena or the complex or wherever it may be, I always remember seeing Marcel and his wife sitting there at a table all by themselves all through the evening, trying to sell tickets to help pay for the facilities that we had built. The facilities that he had worked hard to get built himself, along with committees and members. And he moved on to build a complex and a pool. So he devoted a good part of his life in trying to sell tickets and whatever to every kind of event to help pay the debt on these facilities. And with that, with the fact that he had worked hard to have these built, as well as worked hard to have them try to pay down the debt, I think we owe a lot to him for that. I would certainly like to see the arena named Marcel Labbé Arena, in his name, because I think it's worthy of the work he has done. He's worked hard, and I remember seeing that, and I remember in my mind saying that, wow, he is dedicated and trying to doing something for the Sturgeon Falls area at that time, which we were not amalgamated. So it's something that touched me for many years, and I just hope the council will approve something of that nature.
Conseil Yvon, thank you very much. But I think the first thing we need to look at, it's what was prepared by communication, right? So because if we adopt the bylaw, correct me if I'm wrong, that means there's a process in place. And so the first thing we need to be doing is looking at the bylaw, and if anybody have any question about it, and after that, well, obviously we can talk about to give direction to staff, and said we can also talk that what we feel about in that case, but there's a process. So are you in agreement to look at the bylaw, Yvon?
Oh, I certainly have no problem in creating a bylaw or putting bylaw in place.
Well, there's an example that was given.
Oh, I seen the example, yes.
Okay, so if you look at it, well, you have to, if you have any question, or you don't have any question.
No, I don't have any problem.
Okay, so then.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would just draw your attention to the one question. There was some municipalities specifically precluded naming buildings after people who had made financial contributions. Some permitted, and that was I think it's the fifth bullet point down in the naming principles. And we left it as an or, may or may not, and that is kind of a decision point inside this document that I know we'd like to get direction on for putting it into a new bylaw, and also in the section regarding naming of assets for elected officials, appointed public officials, or employees. So there are a couple of decision points in those sections that I would need direction on before incorporating this into an actual bylaw for adoption.
I'm just trying to find it. Councillor Fisher, what's your comment and your take about the bylaw?
I like I think this is a good basis for a bylaw. I like the fact that it's committee, because myself, people could tell me names and I honestly don't know. I don't know if it's deserving or not. As for the three questions in this document that I see, number one, yes, if somebody wants to give us $1 million to put their name on the information center, let them offer it. So I would say for sure we'll entertain that. Number two, current elected officials, no, there's definitely too many public buildings on this planet that are named after politicians. There are far more deserving people like school teachers and nurses. And as for the third question, yeah, you got to be dead. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that's clear. Conseiller Larrabee, you're live, so you can talk.
I can talk now. Yeah, I'm off mute. I agree with Mr. Councillor Fisher. Totally. Thank you.
That you got to be dead to have your name on a building?
There you go.
Okay. So then Conseiller Mallette.
I'm okay.
You okay? So then I go to Conseiller Ravida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions. The process would be if we are naming a building, then what would happen is that we would seek input from the community on who should be named for that building, and then from there would be a committee set up by us as council to look at the applications or the appointees and then make a decision from there. Is that part of it, Mel?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's whatever you want it to be. Some municipalities, obviously, they have more buildings and more famous people than we do. They have whole committees for this sort of thing. Some appoint it, some give it to their heritage committee. Some just council just considers and makes the decisions. It's entirely. We don't get a lot of these sort of requests.
Mm-hmm.
So let me supplemental to that, Madam Chair. So then what you're saying, the bylaw, would it state that the building, let's say we have a request like this, and I have no issue with Mr. Labby. In the fairness to other people that made contributions, would we ask for applications from other individuals or other individual families? Because we're gonna. It looks like everybody seems to think that it should be no politicians and person has to be deceased.
Through you, Madam Chair, typically the precipice or the preceding issue is you receive a nomination or an application such as we did. It's not meant to be a process where we go out and ask for. It would be by application.
Request, by request.
Yeah, request or applicant. Yeah, either or.
So
if someone.
So just supplemental to that, shouldn't we have in the bylaw identifying the buildings that we intend to name?
That's a whole different discussion.
Well, the point is that if like we're going to get, so somebody wants to be named after the library, so somebody has to submit their name. I have no issue with that, but I find that there might be other people that think that they're as duly, they work just as hard as somebody else to put in place that library. That's what I'm trying to get at. That's all.
So
Can I comment on that, Mel?
yeah,
I
sure.
understand what you're saying, Dan, and there's a lot of people that might say, well, my name is won't be there, blah, blah, blah. But if we open it like that, we're going to create a competition and maybe create more hardship, because if somebody said, oh, well, I did not know the arena could be named on my name, and they put the name somebody else, then it become I think it's got to be handled by request, family member, and stated the reason why, and then we should follow the process. And I think there's thing in there that I agree, and there's thing that I don't think they should be there. Like we cannot make it too complex. So I think if people when they take the time and and especially like an individual that the name that was brought forward, I know Councillor Fisher, obviously you cannot know him because you're not from around here and you did not have a chance to work. But I mean, most of the people in West Nipissing know. So as far as the public input, we're opening a whole can of worm for the family to say, oh no, there's 10 people that say they don't want him. There's 20 that want him. I think I don't want to open competition like that. And somebody.
Councillor Lees, I agree with you, but then on the other hand, is it fair? Like, is it fair to a person that didn't know that we were even going to name that building?
Well,
that person didn't have, like, there are other people in the community. Like, I'll give you an example of, I wanted a building be named on the corner of John and King for my grandfather because he spent 42 years there as chief of police. It was not accepted. They called it, I don't know what they call the building, but the point is that if other people would have known, then there would have been a process. I'm just trying to get at, there has to be some fairness. That's all.
Yeah, but like anything else, and you were in the field that when we gave a plaque to somebody, because they deserve it, and some people will say, okay, I nominate that person to receive something. But I mean, I believe that there should be a process, and that's why we had discussed about a bylaw and again a few meeting ago. But I mean, you don't want to make it too. First of all, it's the council that's going to have the last decision. So involve people. I don't know how we can do that but I'm kind of afraid that we're going to open a can of worm, and we got to create people like, oh, well, my father's a lot better than yours, and he doesn't, those are the things, like, I mean,
But if there's a process, then we can eliminate it. It become
well,
like,
yeah, but,
no, I'm not playing the devil's advocate. All I'm
no.
just saying that we just have to
oh,
watch.
I
the
hear what
flow.
you're saying.
Councillor
Okay.
Dan, if I may,
Yeah.
Councillor Dan,
Mhm.
if you look at the document there, it says there's a public consultation advertised for 30 days. So,
But that's a public consultation.
yeah, so you, at that
Reaffirm-
point, you would be aware that, no?
No, well,
No.
oh,
Okay.
would we? Oh, if that's the case, then I'm all right.
That's what I
No.
think.
No,
Wow.
that's not what it means.
All right.
What does it mean, Mel?
That would, through you, Madam Chair, that would be after we've received a request and council has said, yeah, or whatever committee was appointed to make that decision, then they would say, yes, we're open to that, put it out for public consultation. So then it would be, the West Nipissing municipalities proposing to rename, this after so-and-so. Any person having comments may, provide notes in writing or whatever, because maybe somebody knows something really bad about that person that, maybe everybody doesn't know. I'm just putting it out there.
So Councillor Lee would have, sorry, Denise, what
So,
would happen?
No,
Madam Chair.
I agree with you, Dan, that the process should be at the beginning, and if we're going to open up a building, it should be advertised, and then you have applications, right? That's what I would say.
So,
I'm not sure.
Madam
that
Chair, may I
Yes.
didn't have an opportunity to speak
No,
on the subject
I was
matter.
getting, you're the next one. You're the
Okay.
next one. So, and after that, Councillor Denis, if you want to do another comment, that will be your turn, like when we went around the
Okay,
table.
so what I'm hearing the discussion taking place, we're discussing two different issues. We're talking about the inventory of what we own. And are we going to look at, so that's an issue on its own. We got a request that came forward along with documentation pertaining to the history of Marcel Labbé and his contribution. And the request is either to honor Marcel Labbé by naming the arena on his behalf or naming the complex on his behalf. And to facilitate future requests that we get, I think I do concur, we need a bylaw. We need a bylaw. I don't agree with some comments that were said. I don't personally feel that you need to be dead to be able to have some type of recognition for major contribution, i.e., we saw what they did in North Bay at the airport for Bob Wood. And I was happy that Bob Wood was still alive to know that he was being recognized and having something named on his behalf. I would not exclude politicians. If you look at the name on this building outside, La Bâtisse s'appelle Jean-Jacques Blais. And he was a past politician. And as long as we have a process, and I agree with the notification that if we get a proposal that comes in and we have the request, but we need supporting documentation so we know the history and determine if it fits the parameters of our bylaw so we can proceed with the decision. Right now, the question that the clerk is asking, committee, I say no, because we don't have a heritage committee in place. We don't have a recreational committee in place. And I find that the Planning Advisory Committee, they deal with Planning Act regarding development for land. So I think when it comes to recognizing buildings, halls, or green spaces, that should be the final decision of council. Your elected officials should have an awareness of the makeup of their community. And if we don't have an awareness of the makeup of the people and of our community, well, we're duty bound as well to do some research and to ask some information. That's my personal opinion. I do agree that if we do receive a proposal and that council does agree, I like what Mélanie suggested, that there'd be a notification to the public saying that council received a request to dedicate so-and-so and has made that decision. And that we provide you with 30 days if you have any objections to submit the information to our clerk before council adopts the resolution and does the recognition. That I agree with, because it gives the opportunity for feedback, like Melanie said, you know. But apart from that, dead or alive, my personal preference would be hopefully that when these recognitions are done, it's for a worthwhile cause. And I would hope that the person is still around to know that they're being recognized. If they're not, at least there's going to be a legacy for their families and their friends, that they're going to feel privileged and appreciate the fact that their loved one was recognized. So I don't think we should even identify that they are dead. And to me, it should be weighed on the merit and the contribution and the mechanism to weigh that. And when we do get a request, we should have a detailed document that identifies the reason why that recognition should be provided and some history, because we're not all going to be familiar with the individuals. Like Councillor Chris mentioned, he does not know Monsieur Labie, but his daughter that provided the information did provide historical information pertaining to the contribution of her father that was attached.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I think what I'm going to do right now, it's 8:02, and I'm going to call for a 15-minute break. And after that, I think Councillor Revito will finish. We need to make to do something, and we're going to finish the discussion because then.
I don't have any comments, Madam Chair.
Yes, you're gonna have, no, we're gonna go back. Yes, I'm gonna come back with you, Dennis, not Councillor. You had a question. I will. I didn't say what I had to say either, but right now it's 8:03 and I see people moving and we're gonna take a 15 minutes break and we're coming back with you.
I thought you had said what you had to say.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
gotta.
Well, if you want a 15-minute recess, number one, you need a mover and a seconder.
I
but
know, and I'm coming to, you know what? It's 8:03 and I'm you know what? That's the
you've,
fifth hours. Yes, Madam Mayor, I know that, and I will ask if there's a.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just
Oh.
saying if people wishes a recess, there has to be a mover and a seconder.
Yes, and as a chair, I can call a recess, and I would say I went back to you and asked for a mover and a seconder. So go for it.
I saw the hand of Conseiller Yvon, and I see the hand of Councillor Chris.
Everybody in agreement, raise your hand.
It is moved by Councillor Duhayman, seconded by Councillor Fisher, that a recess, am I on?
Yeah.
Yes, you
At
are.
approximately 8:07 PM, a motion was tabled for a brief 15-minute recess.
All in agreement?
Yes.
Carried.
Come.
So Yvon, Yvon. Yvon, I agree with you that Marcel, but the thing is that it gets problematic when we start getting out there, because we're going to get all kinds of calls from people that
Councillor Dan.
I know, Dan. And I agree. There should be a process to choose these people.
Okay, good.
But I must
No,
say, sure,
guys,
I
we're,
said sure.
we're not off air.
You
We're
know,
not
okay,
out there.
we're
Sorry.
on,
Sorry,
we're
Sorry.
on air.
sorry.
Well, you asked that question before, and it's I don't think it's appropriate to have a discussion between about some of the things we're discussing, because talking about transparent. Okay, so that's my thought. Was not committing a crime though, so that's good.
We were transparent. You said in front of everybody.
Yeah, I know, but those are the things that between the wall, it should not happen. That's what I'm saying.
And can we wait for all members to be back on before we continue with deliberation, please?
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we are, no?
I do. Cat. Councillor Chris is back.
Okay, he's back.
Okay, so Madam Chair, I'm going to let you continue. We left off with a request to honor Marcel Labie.
And we were up to a comment from Denis, Conseiller Denis, and then my comment, and then we can try to figure out how we're going to go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to discuss Marcel Labie. I'm just going to discuss the bylaw. I think we should have the bylaw before we proceed. But anyways, notwithstanding the application of Mr. Labie, some things in the bylaw, I think the financial contribution should be, there's going to have to be an amount there. So we'll have to look at that later on, I guess. You can't just donate $5 or.
I think it should be.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Nothing, sorry.
As for the building, if we choose a building, and I agree with Councillor Ravida that there should be a system where if council is going to make a decision on a building or a road or something, the public needs to know. We need to be transparent. So there should be a committee with some sort of list of criterias, and then there should be an application. Whoever wants, let's say we rename whatever, I don't know, any building. So there should be a criteria, and whoever has the more checkoffs on the sheet, they would be the ones on the naming. But it's not fair that we have an application and people are not aware that we're going to rename a building or a street. So just to make it transparent, I think that should be the first thing in the process, not in the middle. Because if what we're saying is if you apply, then if you meet the criteria, it's yours. And that shouldn't be. It should be who is the best candidate for the work they did or for the renaming. So that's the point I wanted to make. And that's about the three things. And yeah, the person can be alive. I don't see why they should have passed. But anyways, okay, those are my 4 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Monsieur Sénécal. Fait que moi, je suis d'accord qu'on a besoin d'un processus en place. C'est clair qu'on a besoin d'avoir des lignes directives pour quoi faire. Je ne crois pas qu'on devrait aller à un gros débat, quelque chose de même, mais pour avoir quelque chose d'un avis, qu'il y a une demande, comme exemple, de mettre un nom sur un building, puis pour 30 jours, que s'ils ont des commentaires, puis s'il y a quelqu'un d'autre qui veut soumettre leur nom, ça va être le temps qu'ils vont avoir de le faire, parce que c'est vrai, peut-être qu'il y en a qui veulent l'avoir. Puis après ça, ben, je pense qu'il faut qu'on développe une liste. We need to develop a list of criteria. And obviously, the list that we already had Monsieur l'abbé Pédégris, comme qu'on dit, là. Je crois qu'il est assez extensif, que c'est pas une question qu'il mérite pas, c'est pas ça, mais de donner la chance aux autres de mettre leur nom. Ça serait mon commentaire. Mais dans l'arrêté qui est proposé comme c'est là, je pense pas qu'on écoute des gros comités, là, on n'a pas 150 millions de building à donner, là, puis c'est le conseil qui va faire la décision finale. Moi, personnellement, si j'aurais quelque chose, puis c'est pas moi qui va décider, je sais que je me le fais dire, que je suis rien qu'un vote, mais la réalité c'est que c'est le conseil qui va décider à la dernière minute. Puis ça, on met une consultation de 30 jours qu'on donne la chance au public. S'il y en a d'autres qui veulent donner leur nom avec une demande de remplir une soumission, puis ça, by all means, puis les commentaires qu'ils ont, ça c'est très, très approprié. Mais,
Madam Chair, Leo, can I make just a short comment?
Leo, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now you made me forget my last sentence, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. No, don't be sorry. You were just, what do you want to say?
No, I agree with Mayor Joanne about being alive, because I know the mayor from Nipissing Village, Leo Jobin, and they named a bridge after him last year, and while he was mayor. I mean, that's the example. I'm just
So that's some of the things that we can say that we agree that dead or alive, and I think it doesn't matter. If somebody deserves it when they're alive, good. If they're dead, well, again, they won't see it, but the legacy is going to be there. So that's something that maybe we can go fast and say, oh, we got to go to proceed with the bylaw. I think the bylaw is too big, too much committee, too much people involved. We need to involve the public. I think we all agree with that. And 30 days, maybe. What do you think? Conseiller Denis, would you agree that we put an ad and we say there's a nomination, there's been a nomination for example, I'm going to say it, people, everybody knows that Monsieur l'Abbé family had requested that his name, because of his past involvement with the community, he had requested that we name the arena. Okay, so we're asking feedback. If anybody feel that, well, no, or I have somebody else that maybe, well, then we might do an interview with the family, or you know what I mean? So that's the start, but not to make it too complicated, but fair, and not dead or alive, or there's criteria. And I don't see why somebody make a financial contribution. You know, there's people in this world that give volunteer work for all their life. They raise their family, then they do volunteer work, and we're going to exclude them because they did not give $5,000 to put on their name on the building. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that's what we should base our decision. Our decision is the kind of person that person was and what that person did for our municipality. That's enough in my book. But that's only my opinion. So what do we do? How we do that? Because it's 8:24. Yes,
Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
just quickly, because obviously before we can put the ad out, we have to adopt some kind of a policy. Everybody seems to be, and I just want to quickly summarize, everybody seems to be okay, except for maybe Councillor Fisher, that the person doesn't have to be deceased. The issue of naming with financial contribution, it's not an issue of whether they have had to contribute financially. It's some municipalities specifically exclude people who have made money contributions. So there's not an appearance of you get your name on a building if you give us a big bucket of money.
No.
That was the premise on that one. That's why it's sometimes excluded. The other thing that I think we were just talking about is everybody seemed to be in agreement that the decision stays with council. We don't need a standalone committee. And the question about an elected, beg pardon?
I don't agree with that. I think the additional notes down there, I think it should be a smaller committee, because the whole council committee, it's hard to make a decision. And what I like the thing of mayor with the ward councillor and maybe a few others on that committee, but I don't think we need the whole council, but that's my opinion.
But he will make a recommendation to council to vote, Councillor Denis.
They wouldn't be the decision-making body. They'd
No,
be the
at least they do all the
recommendation body.
work, and we don't have to argue. We just vote yes or no.
I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah, okay, that's,
So do I, Denny.
So are they the mayor and the ward councillor, and who else would comprise the committee?
I don't mind
Anybody-
be part for the next year and a half till people decide if I'm gonna be there for the next 4 years after.
Well, if it's your award, you'll be part, but it should be,
Yeah,
there's a list here that, I don't know if we want to use that list.
Well, these are just recommendations. Usually there's some sort of staff on most committees just to provide.
So,
And
the
that's
clerk,
what,
the clerk should be
I-
there.
there
I'm
has
not
to
gonna
be, there has to be the clerk, and I'd also open it up to another volunteer member of council.
The ward member.
Well, the ward counselor and another volunteer from another member of council, if someone else wants to, customarily like.
Well,
You
we
know
have
what?
the mayor, we have two. We have the
Okay,
mayor and the
okay.
council.
Yeah.
So let's keep it simple. The mayor,
Yeah.
the ward counselor, and along with the staff resource, and then recommendation to council, and council makes the decision.
yeah.
Excuse me, excuse me.
Yes.
The ward counselor, would it be the person that's being nominated? Or is it the ward counselor that has the building in that area?
It would be the word counselor for which the recognition of either the building or green space. So here in this section, for this request, we're looking at the Sturgeon Falls Arena. So the Sturgeon Falls Arena falls in the ward of whom?
Me,
Yeah, okay, and I don't disagree with this.
But you know what? That's just to provide an clarification to the question that's asked. Person,
Madam Mayor?
you're chairing, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, okay, so, well, yeah, so you said, are you finished? Do you have anything else to say?
Not at this point.
Okay, well, because I want to come back to what you were saying, one of the thing, I don't mind if the person like Conseiller Dan, the arena, but I think we're talking about persons, so it would be more personal to if the person is deceased, where was he living when he was deceased? And if he was living in whatever in Lavigne, there should be that person, that where, because a building is a building. And there's not, all the major buildings are right in town, right? So I think Marcel was living in, even in Dan's.
So my suggestion right now, if we find it difficult to come to an agreement to that, why not just leave it in a draft bylaw that's going to be presented to us saying that there's going to be a submission, there has to be supporting documentation, history. It needs to comply with the suggestions pertaining to the policy statement, and then bring it to council, and then you make a decision. And then if you agree, put out a notification to the public saying that council is considering naming this building on behalf of so-and-so. And if you have any objections, submit it to the clerk.
no, that's not what Denis, Councillor Denis suggested.
I know, but you know
And-
what?
I think Councillor Denis had support around the table. People agreed
I-
with.
I think, okay, Madam Mayor, you want to include that what the Conseiller Denis has said, that a small committee should be formed and then bring recommendation to council. Or you did not want that part, I think, because most of us had agreed to that part.
Madam Chair,
Yeah?
can I make a suggestion? Perhaps we could set it up so that the committee shall consist of 3 persons consisting of the mayor, a councillor, and a member of staff, and it'd be an ad hoc situation where the councillor person be picked as a volunteer be asked for when we receive one of these requests. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, that's of one form, so.
Good,
I
good
mean,
point.
we need
I
to
agree.
plan the decision right now, so.
I agree. I agree.
So do I, Yvonne.
Yeah. I like your point, Mel.
And we could just set it up as an ad hoc committee consisting of,
Sure.
We'll agree on the members then. Yes. You understand, Lise?
Oh, I'm not saying anything else as long as we get to the next one because it's almost over. And we
Yeah.
got 3 hours tomorrow, so.
So let's go.
So Mel, we going to,
I think I've got
Yeah.
the highlights. I'm gonna put it all into the form of a bylaw and bring it back next week with what I think where everybody's at. There?
okay, so there's
Fair.
one last, okay, thank you very much, Mel.
Just a final question. Does it mean that the levy request is going to be put on hold until we get the bylaw in place?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to clarify.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last one is a request from the taxi regarding, because we all know that everything is delayed and it's hard to even a license has been saying that in 221 we can wait till the office are open again to apply for it. So they're asking because they're having issue with every year they go for the what they call CPIC. And they're having problem having done because even online there's so the request is to try to delay it. And I think Melanie had put a resolution to delay it till the COVID is over at least. And by the time maybe to put it up till January next year.
Well, their regular renewal dates, through you, Madam Chair, their regular renewal date is in February of each year. So they know when it's coming up on an annual basis. What they're asking for is to skip 2021 completely and use the checks that were provided with the 2020 licensing information. I'm not comfortable with particularly with foregoing the vulnerable sector checks, but it's up to council. I was recommending an extension of 120 days. But if council wants to waive it for the balance of the year, that's entirely within your purview.
Okay, I think that's what she said. It's 60 to 120. I think they would be satisfied with that because at that point of time, hopefully everything's going to be open.
Hope so.
So what is council?
So I'm asking,
Yeah.
do we want, the request was for the whole year. The recommendation was for 120 days. So I'm just seeking direction from council.
And if they cannot have it at that point of time because it's still closed down, they can always come back and request for an extension.
Well, there's not closed down. It's just the online process is a little bit more onerous than just walking in and making a in-person application.
No, but you have to agree that it's not an easy task to do, to try to get something online with the government thing right now.
I know, but
Okay.
I was suggesting 4 months. But if council wants to go
Yeah,
6
yeah,
for the
and I
rest of
agree
the
with
year.
that. I agree with that. But I mean, okay,
Ask the question.
ask the question. So I
Ask
ask
the
the question. Do council?
Does council agree? I'll ask 2 questions. Does council
Okay.
agree to
We have
waive?
to read the resolution, so.
Yeah, there's no resolution, it's just direction. Does council agree to waiving the requirement for the criminal records checks for this year, this calendar year, which is the request of the applicant?
I thought you're recommending 120.
Well, or does council agree with the staff recommendation to extend it 120 days?
Yeah, that I would go with that, yeah.
Okay, then that's good, we got it.
Okay, can I just have a comment, Madam Chair?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Quickly. It's unfortunate that.
Oh, that was fast, thank you. No, joking.
Unfortunate that the Warren detachment is not accessible, to get the criminal record check. And either through liaison through the police board or either through liaison with OPP, they are not the only one that are experiencing the challenge in getting criminal record check. And I've heard through the grapevine that maybe people in North Bay have it quicker because they can access North Bay. But anyway, I just want to bring that up because it's something that warrants further investigation to make sure that people in our municipality is not subject to delays. And this is one example.
I agree.
Okay, so based on that, Madam Chair, you have completed your committee. We move on to the next committee and I'll pass it on to the chair pour le comité de mesures d'urgence et sécurité
We didn't agree
publique.
anything.
Sorry, Conseiller Leo.
We didn't agree anything.
Well, we agreed to the 120 days.
You didn't go.
You shouldn't go around. I'm sorry.
Everybody raised their hand.
We all raised our hands. Mélanie asked the first question, if we
Okay.
gave a blanket
Okay.
exemption, no one lifted their hand, and 120 days, we all raised our hands.
Okay.
Where were you?
Okay, so coming back to the agenda, please. Emergency measures, public safety, I'll pass it on to you, Councillor Chris.
So I have two things on the agenda. Number one is COVID update, and I'm not sure if I'm passing this on to our Director of Community Services or our CAO, and I assume it's a verbal update.
You're on mute.
I can start, Mr. Chair. As far as COVID updates pertaining to community services, we did manage to get our outdoor rinks in an operable state, although some of them had to close down shortly because of the warmer weather we had on Sunday and some of the rain we had as well. But my understanding is work's been done overnight last night and we're back in business. I mean, looking at the forecast, I think we'll be okay for the remainder of this week. But if we look at the forecast for next week, we're looking at plus side temperatures and some rain. So we'll take it day by day, and as soon as we see that ice conditions are no longer safe, we will be shutting our facilities down. But so far, we're still able to be out there and be skating on our outdoor rink. So I want to thank the attendants. I want to also thank our staff for helping them out. They did a fantastic job to get our rinks back in shape in very short order. We're still awaiting more direction from the health unit in the province. Hopefully we'll get that sooner than later by week's end so that we can know if we'll be going out of the lockdown and which color we'll be in before we can start making finalized plans to reopen our pool and our fitness center. So again, awaiting confirmation from that. Staff are just waiting, and as soon as we get the green light, we will be moving into reopening mode for those facilities, and we'll be advising council and the public accordingly. That's it for my end of the COVID update.
Thank you. Mr. Babo, do you have anything to add to that?
Not really. I'm sure everybody, I mean, we're meeting every Wednesday and we're trying to get information. I guess everybody is trying to get on top of when this lockdown is going to end. We'll probably know that Friday to see what happens after March 8th. And also trying to get a handle on vaccinations. It appears that things are going fairly slowly. Lisa met with the hospital staff and the public health staff last Friday to look at different sites and to have discussions. And I think the planning is still underway. And once those plans have been finalized, we'll obviously roll them out and share them with everybody. But it's still very much up in the air, dependent on the amount of vaccines that are available in this area. Our neighbors to the west are, experiencing a high volume of positive cases. So things may change that way, and cross our fingers. Hopefully things change for the better for us, but nothing more to add other than that.
Thank you. This is just an update. Do we have questions? Do we need a roundtable? Madam Mayor?
Thanks for the update. That's greatly appreciated. I have to be honest and convey the complaint that I get on a regular basis, and the complaint is pertaining to the Sturgeon Falls dump. People really have a difficulty understanding why the dump is not accessible when all the outlying dumps are accessible. They don't see the risk And I wanted to share that because if I get those complaints, I'm confident that members of council do. And if the lockdown is extended, this would be an issue that I'd like to discuss at a future meeting.
Thank you. So, Mr. Babo?
Just, yeah, I spoke to the manager of the dump, and we're looking at that right now. We were kind of going along the lines of the lockdown, trying to do our part with respect to unnecessary use of the dump. The other dumps are a necessity. The other ones have curbside pickup. But that being said, I do agree that it's gone on long enough. And so we'll be having a look at that in any event. Likely it'll be opened on Monday.
Thank you. If there's no more questions on that one, I'll move to the next one. I don't see any hands. So the next one is parking of commercial vehicles. And I know that this did come to council for a different concern, but very similar. And there are some resolutions to that last conversation we had in our package is a memo from our municipal planner, I guess, in this case. And Melanie, did you want to just quickly run us through your memorandum?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we were talking about, we had discussed this last November, and I believe, as indicated in my memo, council was not in favor of amending a bylaw or incorporating a bylaw that would regulate parking in private drives. Council had been agreed that we would have our public works staff and manager identify any. There was a discussion about problem areas, narrow streets, and it was given to Public Works to take a look. They hadn't really identified anything that was causing any major concerns to them. However, I just wanted to highlight that we already have provisions in our bylaw, in our traffic and parking bylaw, which do regulate parking of vehicles and commercial vehicles in particular in 5.3. So that was what I was bringing forward, was that if council wanted to, we could add to Schedule B to include additional places on that schedule if council felt was necessary. Or we could, the provisions are pretty much in the traffic and parking bylaw as it stands.
Okay, thank you. We want a roundtable. So I see Councillor Duhaime has his hand.
Okay, so there is a policy in place with respect to the parking of commercial vehicles. The only concern, the only thing I have of concern is that, and I think we're at that particular place is Major Street, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to be paving that street very soon. Anyway, that being said, it's just fact of the matter is that when we pave residential areas, the pavement is very small, very thin. And if we're going to have a commercial vehicle going up and down, and depending on the tonnage, it could have a bearing effect on the pavement itself. So that's something we could look at, just something we can look at, and maybe to try to, keep the life of the road, try to avoid heavy traffic on that one with respect to heavy equipment. So that's something we could look at when we probably could amend the policy to say so. Thank you.
We do, through you, Mr. Chair, we do have areas where there are no truck routes that are also in this same bylaw.
Okay, so maybe we could look at that closely and make sure that we are intending to protect the roads as much as possible. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Larrabee, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we had discussed this in November, and we had come to a decision. So why would it be brought back? It's not a year. Usually you bring back after 1 year an issue that has been resolved already.
So I think in this case, we had the discussion and actually Public Works, this is sort of an answer to our last discussion. So I think this is okay to have come back in this way. Anything else?
Yes, the way the letter was sent, it's it's still the same issue. And I do recognize that same truck that was the complaint from the original one. And a truck of that size, it's like a sea can, and it doesn't weigh a whole lot compared to if you would have a fully loaded logging truck or something. That would be a little bit different. But this is not nearly as heavy. So I don't have any issue at all with like it was discussed at the last time. No issue at all with the trucks. People bring it at home. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mallette.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I agree with Councillor Rowley. It was brought up last year, and there's a lot of commercial vehicles parked in the yard all throughout the West Nipissing. And if we do for one, we have to do for everyone in West Nipissing, and we're going to hurt a lot of people. So that's my view.
Thank you, Councillor Revita.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion as Councillor Rowley and Councillor Leo, because the thing is that if you look around, there's a lot of commercial vehicles out there, and we wouldn't want them to be disadvantaged. Yeah, I wouldn't want to have people having to drive to North Bay to pick up their truck because we pass a bylaw that they can't have their truck parked in their yard. And the thing is, although we do have parking here, and I think the mayor made the comment that we had parking that we could make available to them, I don't think that's adequate either, because the thing is a lot of these people, when they have to leave in an emergency. And sometimes they don't have the time to go half a mile or a mile to get their truck. So I agree with what's in front of us.
Thank you. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. One of the reasons why it's back, when we had the discussion in July, members of council had agreed that we wanted to prohibit large commercial transports to be parked along the roadway, mostly in high density residential areas where there's no sidewalks, because it was identified, as a safety issue for pedestrians, families, young ones walking, and also for incoming traffic and school buses, and in the event that there'd be emergencies. So we had agreed that we wanted to restrict that from occurring as a safety issue. Then we were told, well, maybe it's not just Majot Street. Maybe there's more streets. So let us go back and verify if there's other streets that we would recommend. Now we find out we have a bylaw, but that bylaw also provides the provision that they can park between the hours of 9 and 7, large commercial vehicles. So here, is that correct, Mel?
No, that actually prohibits parking between,
For 5.3, 5.3.
yes, that between the hours of 9 and 7. So they can't park between 9 at night and 7 in the morning.
Okay. So
where they're on the streets that are indicated in the bylaw.
Okay, so here, the remaining of the hours, they can't do that between 9 and 7, but then between the other hours, starting after 7 o'clock in the morning, that's where you have your school buses, that's where you may have pedestrians, people walking. It's the safety issue.
Yeah. Well, the bylaw does, and I was actually unaware of this. 4.1 of the, 3, Mr. Chair, the bylaw actually in 4.1 prohibits parking at any time on any side of the street by anything.
It provides for
it prohibits
for
parking
a longer period of 4 hours.
No, it's on a boulevard or on a roadway for 4 hours. A boulevard, not at all, or on a roadway for longer than 4. A boulevard is a shoulder.
Okay, so we're saying that along shoulders on any streets downtown in subdivisions or high density area, no one is allowed to park along the street?
That's what the bylaw says.
Okay, so it means that even like a transport, they're not going to be allowed at any given time to park along the road in a high density area, dans une région, une subdivision dans la communauté de Sturgeon.
That is what the traffic and parking bylaw currently says, and it doesn't specify what kind of vehicles.
Okay, so that means, okay, so that clarifies that issue, because we were waiting for a report to come back from Public Works when we had that discussion in July. So it means that we have a bylaw, and if anyone parks, if there's a transport that they're parked on a boulevard, they can call our bylaw enforcement officer, and then enforcement can be done.
Correct.
Perfect. Now, the other issue as well, the letter that came from Mr. King dated November 25th, there's new information that's brought to the attention of council. If you want to look at the copy, and I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th paragraph down. It says there's an issue of egress where the individual no longer has room to park vehicles, personal vehicles, because of the transport, and then the vehicles are parked in front of the yard of a residential lot. I'm looking at the letter that Mr. King sent November 25th, where the paragraph says, in the case of 439 Majot, we outline in our previous correspondence, in order to accommodate the commercial vehicle on their 50-foot property, they have excavated a quarter of the front lawn to accommodate further personal vehicle parking. They've blocked a safe entry and egress to their primary residence. Would that apply to our property standard bylaw where we do have a clause for egress? So maybe if that can be checked into, because maybe it's addressed through another bylaw, and if it is addressed through another bylaw, well, then that would be bylaw enforcement. But I do have here again an issue of concern for safety. If there's a fire in the vicinity and the entrances have vehicles at all entrances, and the lots, you know what, the houses are one adjacent to the other, so if it creates hardship to respond to a fire emergency, well, you can imagine the liability with the adjacent homeowners. So if that can be verified, and if we can get feedback on that, I would greatly appreciate it.
So, so Melanie, is that possible to have that checked?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question, Mr. Chair. I don't know whether there's, I do know in the zoning bylaw, there is a minimum amount of your yard that you can use for parking, and I don't know that number off the top of my head right as we speak, because you are allowed to use a certain percentage of your front yard. But there's no mention of whether or not it can block the door. That I'd have to actually discuss with the fire chief or the property standards bylaw. I don't know the answer.
So can we maybe?
I flagged it. I'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Denise Seneca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only have 2 comments. The manager of Public Works that we asked for his report, he says they don't identify any specific areas of concern, and the municipal operations are not being impeded. So I have no issue. We have a bylaw right now, and I think we should follow that. And I think this case is closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Seneca. Your microphone's off, Lise. Microphone.
I said, I don't think that the case is closed, because right now we did not know we had a bylaw. Now we know we have a bylaw, and they cannot park on the street. Anybody cannot park on the street. So that can be reinforced. And I guess that's new information that Mel's got to bring to us. I mean, depending when the public work went and do their inspection, maybe there were no car on the street at all, and they didn't see what was the issue. So at that point of time, we need to wait. We got good information today, and I think that there's a tool that can be utilized to respect the bylaw, because we do have a bylaw.
Thank you. So I think we're going to come back with a bit more information on that specific concern. And unless anybody throws a hand in the air, my section is finished, and I will pass it back to Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chris. We move on to the next committee for planning, and I'll pass it on to the chair, Conseiller Denis.
I'm not aware that I had an issue tonight. Melanie, what do we have?
We don't. That's regular.
Okay, it's regular, Madam
Oh.
Mayor.
My apologies.
Yeah, you scared
Okay.
me. You scared me there.
Me too.
That was only a test. No, yeah, you're going to say, yeah, right. Okay, so we're moving on to the regular portion under planning. I guess we're going to have a resolution regarding that. So would there be a mover and a seconder? Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Yvonne?
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-11 being an amendment to the actual cost bylaw number 2016-65 for the Cedar Grove drain shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Are there any questions? Mel?
Yes.
Just very quickly, the reason why there was an error in the calculation or a calculation error.
That's
So
correct.
did it affect all the affected residents that are within the watershed or
Yes.
just it did? And was there any disagreements or any concerns that came back from the affected residents that were notified?
We didn't bill them yet.
Oh,
We
okay.
haven't sent out the bills. It was caught before the bills went out.
Okay, perfect. So if there's no further question, all in agreement? Carried, adopted. We move on to correspondence and accounts, les courriers et comptes. Is there a mover and a seconder? Conseiller Leo, Conseiller Chris?
Is moved by Councillor Mallette and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on February the 16th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried, adopted. To receive the minutes from boards, committees, au chateau. Is there a mover and a seconder? Conseiller Yvonne, Conseiller Chris?
Is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Au Chateau Board of Management dated January 20th, 2021 be received.
Any questions? None? All in favor? Carried, adopted. We move on to new business, affaires nouvelles. The bylaw to amend the purchasing policy and procedures. Is there a mover and a seconder?
You
Conseil.
forgot, affaire en marche, we have an addendum. For the letter of support from Levine.
But it comes after the new business.
I thought, okay, but,
I'm looking at the,
well,
No,
it's under, he said, okay.
it's
well,
under I-5 Conseillers.
Affaire nouvelle, yeah, but we are, you're talking about what now?
I-1.
Well, I got,
Okay.
affaire en marche, affaire nouvelle, it's not the same thing. Okay, there you go. My mistake, sorry.
Okay, so coming back to the resolution, did we have a mover and a seconder for amending the purchasing policy and procedure? Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Denis?
It's moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denis Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-12, being a bylaw to amend the purchasing policies and procedure bylaw 2016-89 to allow for cooperative purchasing shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
I'd like to propose an amendment, and the amendment is just to add, as an example, the local authority services last. Because I want to make sure that, I'm not even sure if we need to register for it or if we have to become a member to be part of the group. So that's the suggestion.
Is it a
Just a
motion
question,
for an
Madam Mayor?
amendment on the table?
So, je propose une modification où ce que ça mentionne que la politique elle va être modifiée pour incorporer l'achat coopératif sous section 1 means a variety of arrangements and blah, blah, blah. But then the cooperative purchasing, and I'd like to have sort of an example or maybe make reference, i.e. LAS, the local authority services, just in bracket as an example, because I want to make sure that we don't lose the reason why it was brought forward. It was to seek the opportunity of becoming a member of the local authority services group to see what services and goods that we can get if it benefits the municipality. Conseillère Lise?
Well, I agree with that because that was the purpose of the bylaw to include them. So that's why we have it. That's why it's here tonight. So I just, and I mean, and we are, and Monsieur Barbeau had indicated that we were member and there's no fee, that we are automatically member, and we've been a member with them. And we all know that it will be just for big equipment, not to interfere with our local. So we all discussed that at the meeting, but it's just to keep the door open to maybe if we need something big that we'll have somebody. And
Conseiller
that was
Dan? Conseiller Dan?
Thank you. No, I don't agree that we put that in because it's already in the bylaw. Why have to state it?
Well, you know what? The reason,
Can you explain, please?
the reason I want to add it is the reason we discussed group purchasing. It wasn't cooperative. It was to seek the opportunity of being a member and explore when there are opportunities that can be beneficial to the taxpayers. The amendment, just proposing in bracket, example, local authority services. Because that was the specific subject matter that we discussed when I brought it forward.
I disagree, and I highly recommend that we do not because it's already in the bylaw. Can I have some clarification on that, Jay, please?
Well, I think the amendment that Lisa is proposing allows for the possibility in the legislation, our legislation, to seek out group purchasing arrangements such as local authority services or any other ones. There's a few others as well. So it just provides us with the opening to do that and the framework and legal possibility to do that. I'm not sure it's regular to start naming specific purchasing groups. I can name, like I say, there's OECM, there's HPP, HPI. So there's a few of them that may be of benefit as well. So typically the bylaw just allows for the framework of purchasing.
But I'm still proposing that amendment, and I'd like to call it to a vote, because if there are other group purchasing, if it wasn't in the bylaw, I have to make the assumption that we weren't doing it. So the request that was tabled was the issue of LAS, and I want to make sure that we are a member of LAS and that we explore those options. So to name all the others, we weren't using all the others because it wasn't even in the bylaw. It didn't provide us the proviso of doing group purchasing. So, so the amendment, there's an amendment, and
Is there a seconder to the motion of her worship?
Is Conseiller Denis?
So the amendment on the floor is to amend section 1 of the proposed amendment to include the specific name of the local authority services as an example after the word, I assume at the end after suppliers or contractors.
That's right. Just
Record.
So we're just dealing with the amendment.
That's correct.
A recorded vote, please.
Okay. In favor of the amendment, Councillor Duhaime? In
Yes,
favor of the amendment as proposed?
yes,
Counselor Fisher,
No,
Counselor Millet? Counselor Millet, can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, you jumped one. It's Councilor
Oh.
Larrabee for me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Larrabee, my apologies.
Okay.
Counselor Larrabee,
No, no,
Counselor Millet,
No,
Counselor Ravita,
no,
Counselor Denis Senecal,
Yes,
Counselor Lee Senecal.
It's amazing example, and there's a debate on that, so I'm saying yes.
And Mayor Joanne Savage, yes.
Yes.
So the motion for the amendment is defeated. Coming back to the bylaw.
And do you have a mover and a seconder for the actual bylaw?
It was already read. It is moved by
Okay.
Counselor Fisher and Counselor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number, that bylaw number 2021-12 being a bylaw to amend the purchasing policies and procedure bylaw 2016-89 to allow for cooperative purchasing shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Okay, is there any disagreement? Any objection? None? Carried. Adopted. Okay, I2, that was removed from the agenda. Number I3, support the town of Parry Sound, proactive communication. I'm just going to skip this. Okay, in our package, we have a letter from the town of Parry Sound that was sent to the North Bay Parry Sound Health Unit. And what they've done is they've also provided a copy of the resolution that the town has adopted, and that they're also seeking endorsement by the municipality of West Nipissing. But just to give light to the actual documentation, is that basically they support the directive from the province and from the health unit. They provide information pertaining to the North Bay Parry Sound Health District, which was previously in a green zone prior to the stay home, whereas there's been more restrictive the directives, the greater the financial burden on businesses and individuals. And whereas the North Bay Parry Sound Health Unit has taken a more restrictive approach than many district health units in Ontario by extending the stay-at-home order until February 22nd. Whereas the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit has taken a very restrictive approach by ordering all public ice rink, tobogganing hills, skating rinks, and snowmobile trails and crown lawn trails to be closed. And whereas community understanding and support is critical to achieving the objective of that directives, slowing the spread of the virus, whereas the conditions in the North Bay Parry Sound Health District do not appear to be dissimilar to the condition in many other Ontario health districts. Whereas the variant of the virus have been confirmed in other Ontario health districts and stay at home has been lifted. Whereas a greater community awareness generates greater community support. The Parry Sound Town Council recognized that they don't have authority over the province nor the health unit district, but the Council of the Parry Sound requests that the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit take a more proactive approach to community outreach and communication through a range communication technique. And that includes a greater dialogue with municipal and healthcare leaders across the health district in advance of announcement. And that this resolution was forwarded to mayors and healthcare leaders within the health district, the MPP Norm Miller for Parry Sound Muskoka, and the Honorable Victor Fideli, MPP for Nipissing. Discussion.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? Is the Graven at the Fire training, is that, why is that gone? I thought that was,
The the fire chief requested, he's still doing some investigation and wanted to provide more information. So he had asked to be removed and added to the next meeting.
thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, we had received an email to that effect later this afternoon. So coming back to the Perry Sound resolution where they're seeking other municipalities within the North Bay Perry Sound Health Unit District to endorse their resolution. This is what we need to discuss. So I'll start off with Conseil Yvon.
I have no problem in endorsing that resolution. I agree
Okay.
with Perry Sound. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Okay. Councillor Chris?
So I actually disagree. I understand Perry Sound might have difficulty and that, you know, perhaps they feel they should be more lumped with Southerners than they are, but you know, we're all tired and people are complaining and stuff like that. But I don't think at this point we're close to the finish line. And I don't think we want to make this a political issue. I don't see how Dr. Terrico could be more communicative. You know, I ask him questions quite frequently through Dan. I've communicated with him independently. I communicated it even before the pandemic. And I just think this is not the time to make this a political issue. We're at the, you know, we're getting close to the finish line, and you know, Dr. Cherico has taken a lot of flack. I don't envy his position. It's very difficult for everybody, but I completely support him. So I can't support this resolution.
Councillor Rowley?
Also agree with Chris. Thank you.
Conseil Leo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I also agree. Last meeting, we supported Dr. Cherico, and now if we go against, we'll say, well, we're speaking on both sides of our mouth. No, I will not support it. Thank you.
Councillor Dan?
Yeah, I totally agree. This should not even be discussed at the table. We've shown support for Dr. Cherico. Dr. Cherico has been inundating us with information. The last report that he produced, or his organization produced, is on how they're going to roll out the vaccines. It's a very good document. Everybody should have a look at it. I think Dr. Cherico has been as open as he can. There's reference here that they said that we should be giving our leaders and our health professionals not an update, but I'm looking for the word, before Friday, and he can't. The decision, he bases his recommendation on his statistics that he has within his area, makes a recommendation to the political arm. The political arm makes the final decision, and then that is placed. So I think that this resolution, I cannot support from all the reasons that were said, and for other reasons also.
Conseil Denis?
Well, I don't agree it should be a political issue. I think we have followed the science all the way through. I support Dr. Cherico, so I don't see why we should have politics involved with his decision. He's steered us straight so far, and I don't think it's the time to waver. So I don't agree with this. Thank you.
Conseil Lise?
Well, I'm not even sure. I do support the health unit, and I do support their decision, and we have to abide by it. I mean, I think what they're asking is a little bit more communication, but I mean, we're not in their shoes, and we don't know how much communication. We know how much communication they do right now. So at this point of time, I supported him. I'm still supported his decision. and I cannot support to try to, and hopefully it's going to be like I'm not sure. I'm talking about communication. I would love to have a little bit more sometime, but I mean, then I'm thinking about all the work and decision that they have to be making. And I mean, when they make it up to the 8th of March and to try to say, well, no, you can go before, I think we need to respect that because that's the date and we got to know by that date if it's extended or it's not extended. So that's clear. We're going to have a report then. But I mean, what does he want to send a report to say that yes, it's still on till the 8th? I don't know. So I cannot at this point of time because it's not my decision. So, and we already said that I was supporting him.
Okay, well, you know what, I don't think the town, that the will of the town of Parry Sound was not to support Dr.
I know,
Cherico.
Mayor, please,
I'm saying
know.
my opinion, and I respect it's defeated because there's not majority, but I'm entitled to my opinion. And I get the level of frustration because everyone is fixed to the television the Friday before to find out what the big announcement is going to be. And if I'd be in the shoes of small businesses where your livelihood had been affected, where, you know what, they don't know how long they can continue not to operate. So I guess here the spirit of the resolution was to try to get some type of indicator, okay, some type of indicator of where it's going to go before waiting to be fixed in front of a TV to get the big announcement. And I think we heard it tonight that I know that at all of our emergency group meeting, it's the same comment that we repeat. Hopefully, if there's a mechanism that we can get the information before Friday, before the deadline, it would be greatly appreciated. So at the emergency management group meeting that we have every Wednesday, that comment always comes up. So in light of that, and based on the circumstances of the financial hardship for our small businesses, I think there's been a lot of political pressure regarding that and a lot of unknown for the future. So I think they wanted to make sure, I think the town of Parry Sound, based on what I heard from the mayor on the local media, is trying to get wind of where it's going after the lockdown. And I understand what Councillor Dan said, but there is a recommendation that's forwarded to the province and they have a cabinet meeting and they look at the recommendation that they got from the health unit and what I think what the small business is looking on behalf of our municipality is making sure that these decisions do have an impact on our small businesses. So anyway, there's not majority that supports it. So
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
We never had a mover and a seconder at the beginning, so we need to move it and second it before we can defeat it.
Okay, Conseiller Chris?
I'll be a mover.
Conseiller Dan?
Thank you.
So
And it's defeated.
It's defeated. Okay, so the other one is a support for the Township of Parry for the extension request for Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. Okay, initially we were told that it was put on hold. Oh, we need a mover and a seconder. Conseiller Chris? Conseiller Leo?
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Mallette. Whereas the municipality of West Nipissing received a request for support from the Township of Parry seeking an extension of the July 1st, 2021 deadline for the submission of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Be it resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality supports the Township of Parry's Resolution 2021-67, seeking an extension of the July 1st, 2021 deadline to the Solicitor General for the submission of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services, the local MP and MPP, and to all municipalities.
Okay, so the plan was due January 1st, 2021. Due to COVID, it was put on hold. and the ministry had not had identified that there'd be an extension. Recently, we got notification that they had provided an extension, and the extension was up to July 1st, 2021. Due to COVID and all the state partners involved on the committee and involved with emergency plans for health issues and to meet the needs for COVID, there's a request here on the table that the ministry reconsider the July 1st date and that there'd be a further extension provided to accommodate municipalities to get their plan together. So, you know what, discussion very quickly. Conseiller Yvon, do you agree with the resolution? You're on mute, Conseiller Yvon.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Chris?
Yes, I agree. We've been on lockdown forever, but it's hard to get things done. So let's give us.
Okay. Conseiller Rowley?
Yes.
Conseiller Leo?
Yes?
Conseiller Dan?
Yes.
Conseiller Denis?
Yes.
Conseiller Alice?
Yes.
Carried. The next one is the addendum. Is there a mover and a seconder? Conseiller Denis and Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Denis Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Whereas the municipality of West Nipissing received a request from the Centre Communautaire de la Vigne Board of Directors seeking support for the proposed creation of a multi-use park and playground on the municipal property. And be it resolved that the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality hereby supports the Centre Communautaire de la Vigne Board of Directors for the proposed creation of a multi-use park and playground on municipal property located at 17 Cotton Road in La Vigne. And be it further resolved that a letter of support be issued to the Centre Communautaire de la Vigne for inclusion in their infrastructure funding application under the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative.
Okay, both Conseiller Denis and myself received a telephone call from members of the CCL, and they were looking at a playground, but also a playground that would have exercise outdoor facility for seniors. Now, they're proposing that this facility be erected, if they get the funding, on municipal property near the La Vigne outdoor rink. And also, they decided by submitting the application for the funding, which was information that was brought, that they've learned recently, the deadline is March 9th. So that was the time sensitivity. So what they're asking that to find out whether the municipality agrees that if they secure the funding, that they can proceed with the project to have the installation of the equipment on municipal property. And two, if council agrees, in providing a letter of support so they can attach it to their application. So at this point, they're not looking for money from the municipality. They're looking for the approval and endorsement. Any questions? Conseiller Denis, did you have anything? Because it's pertaining to development in your ward.
I'll give you a brief history. They've been working on this. They created a subcommittee to deal with this. They've been collecting money for a while. So this subcommittee has suddenly found out that through their research that there was 2 intakes that were available soon. So this is why this is coming up so rapidly, because there is a deadline. But all they're looking from the municipality is 200 by 200 or at the most. And the location is on the other side of the rink, but that would be up to the town to decide where they can access. And all I can say is I got to give kudos to the group. They've done a good job. They've done their research and asking for money. All they want is support. So.
And the diagram that was provided, that would be, they made the diagram if they secured all the money, the funding that they've asked for. So that would be at a large scale, but if they get less than what they're asking for, the project is going to be scaled down. So it won't be as per the diagram. And if they are approved, then they're going to have to work with staff, with their Director of Community Services and our planner, and come back to council to provide us further
I'd just
details.
like to add, Madam Mayor, that the sketch is not to scale here. It looks a lot bigger. It's only 200 by 200, so it looks a lot bigger, but it's not.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the equipment here. I'll pass it on to our Director of Community Services, Stéphane.
Madam Mayor, just to add, I don't know if all of council have had an opportunity to look at our proposed capital budget without knowing this project was moving forward, because I just found out today when Mel received correspondence that they were applying for funding. I initially had indicated on the proposed capital list of projects for this year the creation of a new playground in Lavigne. So you will see through the proposed capital budget, and it'll be up to council to deliberate, but I had identified that as a priority project this year moving forward, because I know that the committee had requested a new playground be installed in the community, and I put that for council's deliberation this year. So depending on how successful they are with their funding request, and if council wishes to add more money, they could potentially get it all done this year.
Yeah. And that's great. We'll have that discussion at budget tomorrow. And one of the key messages that was passed on to myself was that they realize it's COVID. There's a lot of financial pressures. They expected that the municipality would have financial pressures. So they decided to move forward with funding, and they feel confident that if they secure the funding, they're going to have a little bit of money aside with the CCL to look at realizing the project. So focusing on what we have tonight, questions. I saw that there was hands, Conseil Burley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Yes, we had a playground installed here in River Valley. It was through an association called Let Them Be Kids. So maybe that would be an avenue that could be looked at also. And I totally support an endeavor like this, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Conseil Dan?
Well, I think Steph answered my question, but Denis, Councillor Denis, some of those programs ask for money to leverage, that the community has to have certain amount of money towards it. And then what they do is they build on that. So in the event that the criteria of the program, that I would say that during our budget deliberations that we put money to ensure that we don't inhibit the people of even getting money.
Conseil Dan, we can discuss that tomorrow.
I'm asking a question.
Well, if you're asking a question,
can I finish, please?
Well,
so
finish.
Councillor Denis, are you aware of how much they have funds available already, right?
Yes, they do. They have, I'm not sure of the amount. They have enough, I think, to fill out the application, because there's a percentage of monies they need to bring forward. And I think they have enough for the application. So I think they're covered there, but I can find out and maybe discuss tomorrow. But I don't think they need it at this point.
And if I may elaborate on that, that was a question that I asked when I did receive the phone call, and it was clear that they did not need any other financial support at this time based on the application, the type of funding they were applying.
Well, I asked a question. Thank you, Denis. Thank you very much for your answer.
Conseil Elise?
Well, you know what, with everything that's going on, I have to commend Lavigne. They're responsible for that they take upon themselves to look if there's grant available. There is money available for all kind of thing, and I guess you need to dig and find it, and they find it. So we do have to commend it. And if they need a little bit more money, well, I don't think it would be like $100,000. If they have the money right now, well, they can come back with us, and I'll remember what we're seeing around the table, because we seem to find always a way to find a little bit of change somewhere if they want, because if they apply, they need a certain percentage to do what they have to do, and I'm under the impression they got it, but they might be surprised. So at that point of time, we'll try to surprise them by our help, and we should, and we all in agreement tonight. So I definitely support
Okay,
the request for tonight.
thank you. So coming to the resolution, is everyone in agreement? Carried, adopted.
And Madam Mayor,
Madam Mayor?
it's 9:31, Madam Mayor.
I know, and I
I
was
know.
gonna ask for a resolution. We are almost done. So I need a mover and a seconder, Conseil Yvon, Conseil Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Mallette and seconded by Councillor Duhaime, to extend the curfew to 10:30. Sorry,
All in favor?
No, I'm not.
I'm not.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a round table. Conseil Yvon? I can't hear you, Conseil Yvon?
There's a little bit of issues we have on the agenda. I'd like to complete it, but then I'll follow suit with the council. I'd rather complete it.
It's 9:30, no.
Okay. Conseil Rowley, no? Conseil
No.
Leo? You said no, that's why I say no. I'm just, sorry, I'm repeating.
Yeah,
what you
you're right,
said.
Madam President.
Conseil Leo?
You're right, I said no.
Okay. So we're moving on to Councillor Chris?
So there's not much left, so if it's not urgent, then no.
Conseil Dan?
Nope.
Okay, so right now, majority is not to proceed, not to extend the curfew.
Hallelujah.
So I just want to highlight that we have our budget meeting, our second meeting tomorrow from 1 to 3. We got great news from Collège Boréal today. Previously, when we received notification que le programme de soins infirmières, the practical nursing program, it was earmarked for September 2022, but because they received so much interest, they have reconsidered, and the new program is going to be available September 2021, et ceci au campus de Nipissing. And this will conclude our meeting for this evening. So is there a mover and a seconder for a resolution? Conseil Rowley, Conseil Chris.
it is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-13, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality, to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 2nd of March 2021 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
All in favor? Carried, adopted.
It is
Mover.
moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on March the 2nd, 2021 be adjourned.
All in favor? Carried, adopted. Good evening, bonsoir.